Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and this is going to be just a really quick guide to how to approach lethal in the right way in Runeterra. This is an extremely common mistake I'm seeing new players and even intermediate level players mistake that, one of the ways to take their game to the next level is to basically just think about the game and think about how to approach the end game, like the finisher move, in the right way. So basically, and this is going to be fairly intuitive to understand at a basic level, but there's going to be a lot of examples that I see tons of people mess up. The idea is when you have the ability to represent lethal range on your opponent, should you go for it? Well, the answer is it depends, and it's going to depend on a lot of things. You need to be understanding what common cards they might have in their hands and the probability of the cards that they have in their hands, and that's going to take hand reading. Now, hand reading is a guide that I haven't done yet, but I will put it on this channel in the next couple of days, so watch out for that because it's pretty important for this topic as well. But basically, if you think, your opponent might have something like a Will of Ionia or potentially like a Frostbite, you don't really want to be pre-committing your lethal ranges. Well, let me go ahead and whip you guys up an example. There's going to be a gameplay example, but for now, I can just talk through a pretty common case example. So let's say you've got an early aggressive spot. You're playing like a Demacia Shadow Isles deck, like the meta slave that you are. So it's Demacia Shadow Isles. You're pushing in for the lethal, and you're against an Ionian deck, right? You're doing like a big attack, and you look at the Oracle's Eye, and you see that your attack is just a little bit short of being able to kill their Nexus. They're still up at 2 health after your attack. So you're going to go ahead and put a Mark of the Isles on the attack, right? Again, this is a very basic example. And the problem with this is when you pre-commit your spell, you're very vulnerable to the opponent's spell having a better counter. Like this Ionian deck has maybe a better Will of Ionia target than they did before, right? Or your opponent will use mana in a specific way knowing that you had the mark and they were going to die if they didn't use mana that way, right? There's a lot of problems with this. Or, you're against some kind of Frostbite deck and they'll Frostbite your Mark of the Owls as well, right? So rule number 1, just be aware that your opponent can, and depending on the deck, often will be shutting down your attacks. These two colors are probably the two most common ways you're going to see that in this current patch. But your opponent will have ways to mess with your attacks, especially if they are a kind of control-y style of deck. They can lifesteal with certain things as well, like Grasp of the Undying maybe. And what that means is you want to make sure you're not overextending on long odds lethals that probably won't be getting there. So at the end of the day, the way to think about any such problem is basically what are the odds my opponent has an answer, and most importantly, what is the pressure? Is there pressure on me to risk it this turn? And for this, you have to look at the opponent's clock. Are you maybe going to die next turn at decent odds? Or is there no real significant pressure? I have to use my card this turn, right? Like, let's say I've got back-to-back. That's another, buff card that could extend into a lethal push. Do I need to be using this turn? Do I have to take a risk that my opponent has no answer? Or, I mean, if they can't really kill me next turn, then I can just chill, wait one more turn, and then, so I'll do one attack, I'll set them down to 2 health. They'll know that they can't use Harsh Winds, because they'll think, oh, he probably has back-to-back or Mark of the Isles, I'll save my tool and just go down to 2 health. So we set them down to 2 health, then they attack back into us next turn, and then we're totally fine to attack back into them. Suddenly this time, they're dying, and so they have to play their card, and now I get to use my spell after they use their spell. There's a few really rare examples of where you would want to use a spell before the opponent. Like, for example, when you're declaring an attack, maybe you'll want to use a buff card like Standalone before the opponent can use Brittle Steel, right? Because those are both burst spells. Standalone you need to get off before the Brittle Steel, otherwise, because it can stop the Brittle Steel from happening, because Brittle Steel has a health requirement, right? So, basically, without a really, really niche case like that, playing your spell after the opponent plays their spell is really, really important, okay? Let me give you another example. You're playing like an aggro discard deck. And your opponent is also aggro discard. You've got a mirror matchup here, and you're both at really, really low HP. Let's say you're both at 3 HP, right? The first person to, and if they both have Get Excited in hand, the first person to play the Get Excited loses, right? Because the second person to play the Get Excited, theirs is going to go off first, and they're going to win the game, right? So really, really important to think about the ability to pressure the opponent into playing their card first. These are often like life gain cards, you know, damage cards, or, you know, cards that will swing a unit's attack value up or down. Opponent needs to be playing their card first so that you get the counter reaction. Okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with an example of the play that happened a few days ago that won me a game in a really, really important way that I probably would have lost otherwise, by, you know, making sure I was taking the right opportunity to push for the lethal in that case. And I even go in and talk a little bit about like the hand reading and the math that's involved, which again is kind of the most important, you know, way to think about whether you should go in for lethal or not. Now I'm not going to talk about this just because I've got my boy Twitch Swim over here who's going to be explaining everything to you guys. So take it away, Twitch Swim. But basically, for those of you guys who don't know, you can stop lifesteal by having your unit designate a block and then die. Usually this is done with like Glimpse or manually killing your unit, but Anivia will do that for us, so he can't attack with Anivia if he wants to get the lifesteal off, which means he kind of can't attack with her at all, right? So now we can take, like, you know, a Get Excited block or something like that. I think that would probably be fine. So we'll take, you know, like this here, take a Get Excited. In this case, like, the Troop is actually going to be the lowest value card. So yeah, that's the one downside of using Harsh Winds when we did. And that might have just been wrong. So if this is like, okay, he's using Will just to stop a little bit of damage then. Okay, sure. Lethal. Guys, I'm not gonna fucking go in for face here. Like, do you know how easy it is for him to save himself? He could have, like, literally, if he has Catalyst of Eons anytime in the past, like, 5 turns, it's very, very easy for him to just keep it in hand here, right? Like, if that's a card that he's drawn, that this deck runs, that he has played 0 of, he can just keep that in hand as a heal for 3. Like, going in with lethal, killing one of our Ezreals, and allowing him to lifesteal for 6 is a ginormous lose condition here, my boys. Lethal Pavega. This is your brain on Hearthstone? I don't know. I don't have anything against Hearthstone players, but I mean, it's hard to not make a correlation between the fact that, like, this is such a common meme, and I know some people are spamming it as a joke, but there's plenty of people that aren't spamming it as a joke. And also the fact that I kind of know for a fact that everyone spamming that is probably coming from Hearthstone, because if you come from literally any other card game, you're not gonna see that as lethal, right? So it puts me in a difficult position, basically. Yeah, playing this before the attack is probably a bit better. I mean, he could develop like a Shadow Assassin or something, I guess. Oh, it's a 4 attack Shadow Assassin too. $18 puff caps. I mean, does he have any healing that's actually at fast speed? Because you should probably just go for the kill right now. Like, Will heals 2, Deny heals 4. This I don't think there can't be any downside in going for this right now, right? There's almost a consideration to hit this instead, right? Could that actually make sense? You're enabling Brittle Steel. I don't think there's any downside to this one. It's like, if he has Catalyst, he's still dead. See, Catalyst was literally in his hand. If you're watching the placement of cards in his hand, look. Watch the placement of cards in his hand. He had it last turn. The left card is the one he just drew. He had this last turn. If we had gone in for lethal last turn, we would have lost the game because he would have like lifestealed and we would have killed one of our Ezreals in hand. Like, I need you guys to understand this because this is really important. I'm not triggered right now because of the amount of you guys that are like, it's not about the impact on me. I'm really worried for you guys. It's not about me at all. I need you guys to understand this because you're losing a lot of games right now by trying to push lethals when they could easily have a counter answer and you need to just like wait for it, okay? I am a little tilted by this, but I'm only tilted for your guys' sake, okay? I'm like that you know that teacher in those movies who's like, you know, it's like an inner city school and you guys are throwing away your futures. I'm really concerned with you guys. I really am. Because you guys would have lost that game, and that was a very, very free win. Okay? So please.